Hello and welcome to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club with 4 race starts. We're going to start with our Category 4 riders, then 3, 2 and 1. Our riders lined up in yellow, that is our Category 1 riders. In green, our Category 2. In blue, Category 3. And Category 4 already, we are seeing gaps opening up on the screens. We're seeing the stretch being put on, and over the top, Bernard just trying to push on a little bit here. 3-second gap.
Maria Marin, Jacina Menendez have pushed on with Karuk Quevedo, and now we've got a group of 3 at the front of this Category 1's women's race. This is now really starting to mix up here because this Category 3 group have caught the back end of the Category 4 group and are working their way through the Category 4 field.
At the moment, there is 500 meters separating Category 1 leaders from the Category 2 leaders. The Category 3 and 4 leaders, well, they are up the road, but they are not up the road by all that much.
This is the leading group on the race today, and this is the lead of our Category 3 race. Rebaudo and Quintero side by side. Agudelo 4 seconds back, then it's 8 seconds back to Alessia Antico. Quintero is kicked again. Quintero has pushed up. She's got 100 meters to go. She's going to come round this left-hand bend and see the finish line. Quintero is going to take it.
Hello and welcome to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. It's qualifier race number 3. 21st of May. Where does the time go? The year is flying by. My name's Matt Payne. I'm here in the studio with Emma Martin. We are going to be bringing you all of today's action in the women's and the men's race, both on the YouTube channel and, of course, on the Twitch TV channel for the men's race. Now, Emma, we saw a really different course last week where we had the mountain in the middle. This week we've changed a little bit, but I still think we're going to get some exciting racing with our race fields.
Absolutely. It is a very different course today. So we were in Australia last week. Today we are in Arabia, and take a look at this. So 35 kilometers today with an elevation of 904 meters. Yes, I did indeed say 904 meters. It's a mountaintop finish today for our women. It's a Category 1 climb. It's 10.4 kilometers in length. Yep. 690 meters of elevation with an average gradient of 6.5%. But take a look at that. It is a stepped climb, as you can see very clearly on the map in front of you, and the gradient will go steeper.
And it is a course that we see a lot of action in the final climb, but we do see people breaking it up between the 2 green riders. You can see on your screen, we have that intermediate climb. It's not mountain, it's hill, but it's our tunneled climb where we go in underneath the tunnels, then we drop out the other side, then a big dip and a kicker coming up. And for me, that's a really key point because we are midway into the riding and people's legs are warmed up and they are really ready for the action.
Absolutely, because we've got that flat first 5 kilometers of this course today out of the start pens, and that midsection does indeed break up what can be a very large group at that point in the race.
So potentially some aggressive racing from that point to kick onwards and take us into that climb. As always, we have our 4 race categories: Category 1 in yellow, Category 2 in green, Category 3 in blue, and Category 4 in red. These are our race starters who are going to go first, our Category 4. Let's take a look at our riders and let's run through this field, Emma. A really strong field of individual riders here today.
It is indeed. So today we are looking at 93 women on the start sheets in total, but most of those are in Category 1 and Category 2 today. In Category 4, 12 riders on the start sheets. Let's remember this is qualifier race number 3, and riders need 2 qualifiers to qualify for the final. So Vink is here, Pablo, Madeira, Barco, Ossa, Al-Mansouri, El Hawadi is here as well. So looking to see some really good racing today from our Category 4 women.
And remember, of course, with 5 riders in each category able to take prizes today, I expect that everybody will feel that they are in with a chance because, of course, it's got to be a verified ride as well. And as Emma said, 2 verified rides to get yourselves into qualification number 3 through to the final. Today is going to be critical for some. So we are getting ready to count down here. on the race, and this is our category 4. So, riders ready. This is the time to go. It is the go light, and away we are setting off from the start. So, qualifier number 3, it's underway. So qualifier 3, you're out from the pens onto the boardwalk, going through the lush Everglades here. This really green section of the course, taking our riders in between the hoardings and in between the branding as they head out on to this main section. It's a great run into the city and a new expansion to the Arabia world as well within MyWhoosh this month, along with a lot of other upgrades. And we'll run through some of those whilst we're on the show as well. But Emma, category 4 riders out, and the group that have started are pretty cleanly away, and I think those odds are probably even better than 1 in 12 at the moment.
Well, I think we're looking at around 7 or 8 riders who have taken the start today. So, but Matt, wouldn't it be wonderful if every real road race started with a start like that? Absolutely beautiful boardwalk across the water, and that would be phenomenal to start there in real life.
But well, do you know what you need to do is you need to head out to the United Arab Emirates and go on one of the many rides that are out there. They've got a massively expanded infrastructure of race and ride routes, but they've also got some great events. And if you can see the pictures on social media, as well as being out there, literally heading off down the main roads, the whole thing shut down to get all these hundreds of riders out. Brilliant riding, some amazing events, lots of them supported by MyWhoosh as well, with the stores with lots of ways to come and have a go and have a try. So if you are watching in the UAE, I'm very envious of the infrastructure you've got, but do go down and jump on the events, go see the team down there. They're going to be taking part. Just catch up with the website and social media where the team from MyWhoosh are going to be, and jump on board a bike. Go have a go. If you're watching somewhere else in the world, well, don't worry. You can always jump on board. Download the app. It's available on iOS, on Windows, and on Android. And jump on and have a ride with us. There's lots of rides heading out all the time, and of course we would love you to come and race on the Sunday Race Club.
Well, absolutely, and let's not forget today we've also got our 7 segments on the course today. That first segment coming at 2 kilometres, so our category 4 riders will shortly be seeing that blue banner indicating the start of the segment. The only difference in the blue banners that you will see on the course today is some of them have the word start, the others have the word end, and that indicating where those time segments are now. Matt, those time segments are for indication only, aren't they? And it is the fastest riders through those segments that count.
It is. So no prizes for our segment riders. So if you've watched the tour, the MyWhoosh Championships, for example, is a great example. So if you watch the MyWhoosh Championships, you'll see that there was a prize for the overall, for the segments, for the mountains, for the sprints. That is not the case at the moment. And that is not the case on a Sunday Race Club. And we have only our team competition, in fact, in our finals at the end of each month. The qualification, well, it's top 5 in each of our categories.
Yeah, absolutely. As our riders in category 4 head through the Ferrari showroom at the moment, that blue banner will be coming up exceptionally shortly. So Pablo is leading this out from Vinc de Gracia. Bernat is in here as well. So is Madeira. So in fact, 8 riders, we can confirm 8 riders took to the start line in category 4 today. So Manolin Pablo leading category 4 out on the right hand side of your screen. On the left hand side of your screen, it is the start pen for our category 3 riders in those blue jerseys. That will be the next group to start.
It will indeed. So these are our category 3 riders setting off for 5 minutes after our category 4. Again, another strong group of individuals. We do have Team Golden Light and Peloton Push represented by Golden Light and by Daniela Tamtelen at the moment, but not with enough riders to qualify for a team, which is 3 riders nominated. They may well have the riders in there, but just not nominating them because there is no team prize in our qualifiers. But come next week, well, that adds a whole different dimension. Emma, any particular riders?
Yeah, so 14 riders on the start sheets today in category 3. Jose Zabala is in here, Agudelo, Pelagio, Ochoa, Carmona. So expecting some strong riding today.
And a lot of those names are familiar to us from not just the MyWhoosh Championships, but as well Sunday Race Club riders who are regulars as well, but always one or two riders who could spring a surprise. So let's take a look. Category 3, our next set of riders to go.
Yeah, you never know who has fresh legs, and it's going to be a fresh pair of legs who does well on that Category 1 finish today. So the riders in Category 3 are away. It's qualifier race number 3 of the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. It's the 21st of May 2023, and cleanly out of the start pen go our group of Category 3 riders. So out onto the course from the start pens, across the boardwalk, across the lake. Our Category 3 riders swing right and moving through nicely now as one strong group up to 35 kph. So pushing the pace up and getting that momentum going really quickly. One rider just a little bit off the back of that group, but slowly pushing on. Now, interesting, Matt, because the start tactics can be very different. Some riders like a much steadier start and are happy to close a gap. Other riders like a really strong kick off the start line.
And to some degree, that's physiology. To some degree, that is just how riders want to sort of almost put some safety net up underneath them, something in the bank for a fast start. So they'll kick out because they know they can always ease back. But if the group goes and you haven't kicked hard enough, it's much harder to chase.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, nobody is chasing anybody at the moment in Category 3 because they are on a pack altogether. But take a look at Category 4. A bit of a push on there, I think, from Ella Vink. And you can see some of the damage that has done to the group already. It is stretched back across the road. So Vink absolutely laying some intention down today. And we've got a group of 4 riders now clear at the front. So Vink is there, Barco Ossa is there, Salazar and De Gracia. Those 4 riders now clear with a small gap of 4 seconds back to Pablo.
Definitely really interesting. And this is one of the great things, isn't it, Emma? We've got groups who are racing against each other, against similar ability riders, and they're racing it out against each other week in, week out. And with those 4 categories racing, it does mean there is some competition that is meaningful. It's against your peers, and it's against people who are of a similar ability.
Oh, absolutely. And that is the brilliance of the 4 different categories. Every week you are paired with riders of a very similar ability, and we can take a look at this. This is Pablo Madeira, Bernat, bringing this group back on. De Freitas is in there as well. So these riders who were distanced by that push, now closing the gap and bringing the group back together again. And this is the joy of the Sunday Race Club. It does not matter which category you are in. The racing is strong, but it's strong at your ability level, and we see riders progress through the categories. We're going to move to Category 2. That will be our next starting category. But riders have progressed from Category 3 to Category 2, and we're seeing a number of riders moving up through the categories. And today is a new race for some of our riders who will be moving up to Category 2 from Category 3, and indeed to Category 1 from Category 2. So watching and seeing that progression week by week for our riders is also something that is really good.
Yeah, it's really, really fantastic to see, and I absolutely love seeing what the riders, as they move, as they progress, as they get quicker, as they start to move along. It is really interesting to see now. Category 1 and 2 are down on the start line. Category 3 and Category 4 are on the way through. You can see all 4 riders up on your screens at the moment.
So 4 races today. Category 3 still in a group now, just coming up to that 2-kilometer marker, which is the blue banner for the start of segment number 1. Whereas Category 2, they are in the start pens, and they are our next group of riders to start.
So our Category 2 riders, the next group who are going to be making the way off from our race start. Now, this is a bigger race field, isn't it, Emma?
Yes, it is indeed. So 29 riders on the start sheets today in Category 2. And we've got riders progressing from Category 3. So Alessia Antico, Olivia Quintero, Agudelo Reyes, Ribaudo and Fioroni, all progressing from Category 3 into Category 2 today. So it's going to be really interesting to see how those riders do with the likes of Manuela Sanchez, Reynard, Higuita, Agudelo, Para, all in there and riding strongly week on week in the Category 2 race.
Yeah, some really good climbers in there who are really going to be looking to that finishing climb. But we've also got riders who attack early, and that is going to see some very different tactics, I think, on the way through. Great to see we've got Julia Walkenhurst in here. Walkenhurst, of course, a real challenger and one of those riders who really came to our attention during the MyWhoosh Championship. And if you haven't watched footage, watch it back. So, Category 2 about to set off. We are in with Julia Walkenhurst as we get ready to lead the pens here on qualifier number 3, Sunday Race Club. Away go the riders, and this is the moment where they know there's no more chances. This is the last chance to get your second qualifying ride in for those finals, where our riders will be competing for the team prizes as well as the individual prizes. Top 5 teams, top 5 riders in the finals, all in with a chance at that prize money.
So our Category 2 riders heading out of the start pens and onto the course proper. It's a large group of riders, and we can see in here, so we are actually in with Alessia Antico at the moment. That is one of our riders who has progressed from Category 3, and you can see nicely tucked in the bunch at the moment. So the riders are away, the riders are cleanly away. They are up to just shy of 40 kph. We did say it is a flat start, so it is a flat start for at least the first 5 kilometers here. So the bunch rolling out in Category 2, and on the right hand side of your screen, these are the leaders on the road at the moment, so currently coming up for 6 kilometers into the race, and that is our Category 4 riders on the road.
Yeah, Category 2 up and away, and riders moving and progressing up into this group. Good to see we've got Samara Shepherd in it. Category 2, Emma, another regular rider, but somebody who comes from a very different background, really, in some ways, to being on an esports and cycling on MyWhoosh.
Yeah, so Shepherd, part and parcel of, well, very much seen on a mountain bike, long distance mountain biking. And if you follow her on social media, you will see pictures, beautiful pictures of her out and about across New Zealand on her mountain bike. So, but we get riders on this esports platform, on the MyWhoosh platform, Matt, from very many different backgrounds. So from mountain biking to triathlon to duathlon to cross country skiing, skating. All sorts of different disciplines, and riders finding esports at many different times of their careers, many different times of their lives. And we have road riders and racers who are out and about with race teams, also utilising the esports platform to race, to train, and we see them drop in and drop out depending upon their race schedule.
I know, certainly from my point of view, a regular rider on MyWhoosh. Because, got to say, make sure, guys, you do jump on, and you can do it anyway. So literally, if you've got in my case, it's an iPhone, I can literally run the iPhone with my bike and the turbo trainer wherever I've got 4G. It is that straightforward. Make sure you get it downloaded. If you might be at home in your pain cave, but you might be out on the road, you might be going to a hotel somewhere, and it's always great to see our riders taking MyWhoosh with them. So please do make sure you tag us in. It's at Matt Fixer Pain, at Biking Emma, and of course at MyWhoosh. We really do love to see just what you're getting up to on the bikes, and it's not always in your super duper pain caves that's been built and you've just got ready. Sometimes you've got to be out and about, and that's one of the great things. You can take it with you.
Absolutely, and please do, if you are riding as a group, as in you are all in the same location, and we know some of our women's teams do that, drop us and tag us in on social media. Let's take a look at how many of you are in the room suffering together. If you are taking your bike and MyWhoosh to an exotic location or just a very tiny hotel room, tag us in too, because it's always interesting to follow you.
I want to see a grimy urban location. That's what I want to see. I want to see people with like a big graffiti spray wall and like under the subway, and with MyWhoosh and the bike. Be sitting on the bike and on the turbo train anyway. This I'm sure there's lots.
You're going to start a trend. Where can you ride the Sunday Race Club?
Yeah, how many different types of locations can we find?
Well, talking about riding the Sunday Race Club, this is the Category 1 women are yellow jersey wearers. They are down on the start line with just over a minute to go.
So Category 1 are cream of the crop, the fastest of the fast. This is also the category which contains any new riders, because we don't put them in at the bottom, they come in at the top, and then we find the level. Some amazing riders here today, Emma.
Yeah, absolutely. So Catherine Fur is in here, Quevedo is here, Manshandi, Biarhead is in, and we've got a number of riders having come up from Category 2. So Jenny Sanchez, Veronica Pardini, and Annalyn Tejeros. Keep an eye out for those today. Those riders progressing from Category 2 into Category 1.
And we do see riders able to mix it up when they move up. Sometimes people step up and find the style of racing better. And it is different as you move through. Anybody who has raced, for example, on the road will know that it changes on the way through. So, category one riders lined up, our final category ready to go.
So we are in with Catherine Fuhr as the clock ticks down. Our Category 1 riders today on the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club. This is qualifier race number 3, and Category 1 is away. So as Category 1 comes out of the start pen, they are the last group of riders to leave the start pens today. They are across and up and over the boardwalk, and the pace is high already. Take a look at that, up to 45 kph, just hitting under these wheels of these women as this pace moves and the pack moves well and clear out of the start line.
Really interesting. We're following Karuk Kavedo here, a rider who we know has got a phenomenal sprint. And so coming out of those pens, I would imagine that the tactic is to just give it a bit of gas, which for her is probably a full-on sprint for a number of other people because she's such a strong rider in her sprint and in a high-power situation. Give it a bit of gas, give it a kick, and then that allows her to come out safely in that group. She doesn't have to put in a long effort to come back in. I think what we're going to find that this group will split fairly early. I think we're going to find our regular riders in category 1 up at the front in that group, able to hold the pace, and some of our newer riders dropping out. And if you do, don't panic, don't worry, because it does take 2 or 3 weeks to get those rides in, and the team are always watching. They're looking to see what category we can put people into, and the team behind the scenes do an amazing job. They've got a lot of riders, and they're taking that data source from lots of different places, so they do their homework and try and make sure that you get into that category as fast as possible. Sometimes it can happen quicker for some than others. It just depends on how much data we can pull in for those riders. So please do, guys, make sure you jump on, and don't be disheartened if you do get dropped from the front group of category 1, because there's no shame in being dropped by world-class
riders. Absolutely world-class riders, and we can see 1 or 2 riders already dropping off at the pace of that group at the front of the pack here. Interestingly, I have just spotted Rebecca Gilson. She has been on the start line today, and she is in the middle of the pack, so a return to the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club for Rebecca Gilson. Now, she can climb. It's going to be very interesting to see if she is on form today. So looking forward to seeing this race progress with Gilson in it, but we've got a number of other fantastic riders in here today. So Kavedo did indeed take the win last week, but that was indeed a small group. As we move through here, El Hawani is the rider we are in with at the moment. Currently, if you take a look on your screen, she's putting out 194 watts. That's up on the left-hand corner of your screen. That is the indication of the numbers that the rider we are watching is putting out. So 190 watts, 85 RPM, 176 heartbeats. On the top right-hand corner of your screen, that's a satellite navigation image where you can see just one rider pushing off the front. And lo and behold, that is Rebecca Gilson. We asked if she was on form, and she's looking like she is, and she wants to make a real race of it today. She is taking it out and taking it out hard already.
Great to see Gilson already stretching her legs out here. For those of you who are new to watching Sunday Race Club, maybe haven't had the time and the availability to watch back all of the shows, and there's a lot of shows and a lot of hours we've been putting the words to the action and watching. Rebecca Gilson is an absolute class act, and she has been a rider to beat with a regularity out on the race route. That means she comes in with a bigger reputation, but that is a big reputation to knock down, and you can see the response is coming now. Karuk Kavedo, you can see they're going up to 8 watts per kilo. Catherine Fuhr, these are riders who know Gilson's reputation, and they are very quickly aware that they cannot give Gilson a head. So here we go. First, a real serious race moves being instigated by Gilson. We're at 2 kilometers, Emma. This is already kicking off.
It is indeed. Look at that long line of riders strung out. So it's Fuhr and Kavedo who have decided to try and take the catch to Gilson, but the riders now coming thick and fast behind. Maria Marin, I'm going to talk about the Marins because there's so many of them. Catherine Marin, Julie Sanchez, all in here. BR Head too. I think this is going to come back at least to the 2 chasing riders, if not to Gilson, because Gilson's now only got 3 seconds on this group, and this group are moving really quick.
And this is where Gilson, I think, is just starting to stretch those and go, right, I'm back in town. You better watch out because I'm feeling like I'm going to stretch my legs. But if you're having a bad day, sometimes it's really good to put people on the defensive and go, well, do you know what? I'm looking really strong and just bluff it out. And that's the wonderful thing about cycling, particularly on esports, is that whilst we get lots of data about our riders, so we can see the revs that they're pedaling, the heart rate, the watts per kilo, what we don't see is quite how much they're suffering. So there's a really great bluff that can go on, and riders could be not on maybe the form that they had 6 months ago, but people don't know that.
Well, and also, Matt, what you have to remember is that at the moment all these riders are individual. Now, next week we'll see the team tactics come in. And you may well have one of the tactics in the team. You send one of your riders down the road continually for the first hour to break everybody else up, knowing that they're going to sit up for the last part. Now, they weren't sitting up through that segment number one, were they?
They certainly weren't, and this really shows you as they came through, you can see that all of these riders are chasing riders. There is no Gilson shown in the top 12 because she was the rider who was closed down. And you can see all of these riders pushing on and really pushing in hard here. So, got Giraldo up there. You've got Sanchez, Moreno, Ospina, Carana, Pena, Pardini in there as well. Great to see Veronica Pardini mixing it up with the category one up here. Lorena Araya, Marin, we got Lubna Al Hawani in there. And all of the riders chasing Gilson. Gilson a lot further back now. As they've gone through that sprint, you can just see at the moment it's Luisa Pulgarin who's got the head of the race, just opening a little bit of a gap on the rest of the riders and squeezing on here at 4.5 to 5 watts per kilo. So carried the pace through on the catch and then done the classic counter attack over the top. And now this is where the riders have got to see whether they're going to go after her or whether they're going to let her take a little bit of room. And you see this time and time again in road racing, on MyWhoosh, on esports. You get this gap open, you get the distance open up, and the riders start to get a little bit of ground, and then somebody will decide, you know what, I'm going to just change. Oh, I'm feeling good. And eventually the brakes start to stick, and then you get a critical mass of riders at the front. Really interesting to watch. Now, let's go across to category 4, which is where the very front of the race is. Madeline Pablo is one of our regular aggressive riders in category 4. Really does make the running of the racing on regular occasions. At the moment, is the rider on this climb, and this is, if you remember your course profile, the big climb that comes in. It's at 11.19, and this is our tunnels climb. So we come into the tunnels, we climb up through underneath the water, we come out at the top briefly, and then it's a very quick into the descent, and that is where gaps will open. So it's not necessarily where you're going to break away, but it is where you can drop people behind if there are any gaps. And interestingly, it's Barcaosa who comes across that gap. So at the moment, it's Pablo and Barcaosa up at the front of the race. It's 8 seconds back to Salazar, de Garcia, Vink. Looks like Berrio, Serna down there in Madeira as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is indeed one of the places we do see action on this course. And you can see these two riders now pushing clear of the group. We've got Salazar trying to make the junction. So Salazar pushing on 5 watts per kilo at the moment. So a big push from Salazar to close the gap. Vink now responding, and De Gracia. So Salazar may well be instrumental now in bringing this group all back together.
And this is what I mean about that critical mass. I mean, probably a real key moment, because what happens is when you get one or two riders up front, you've got volume, you've got a strength in depth behind. But when you've got a number of people join the front, eventually get more people in front than behind, that makes the job for anybody chasing late much harder and less likely to catch. So really interesting getting that critical mass moving across, migrating from the group at the back to the front. At the moment, category 1, well, they're all together. So 4 categories underway. Category 1 still down in the city, as are category 2, category 3 heading out of town and in towards our climb. Category 4 well on to that mid-section climb, so making the way in and through the course.
Yeah, absolutely. And our category 1 riders all strung across the road at the moment, indicating a very steady pace, all doing very much the same little pace at the moment, and that looks particularly steady. So we are in with Marin at the moment, heart rate at 138 in category 1, telling me that they're having a very steady start. Category 2, also one large group at the moment, coming up just over 8 kilometres into the race. So the action we've been seeing on category 4, Matt, hasn't quite played out the same so far in category 1 and category 2.
No, big groups in category 1 and 2 and just those speculative attacks. But I think this is one of those things prior to every race. Aaron and I spend lots of time in the offices going through the course profiles, looking at checking out the race route, working out where we think the action is going to go, where are those trigger points. And we were doing that when we were looking at our course profile. You can see it on your screens now. So for us, you can just see category 1 now rolling in, Emma, aren't they, in towards that first big long climb, and getting in position for that's fairly key. Category 4, they're almost at the top of that climb.
Yeah, absolutely. And though the strange thing is, Matt, as I often say, we do make assumptions about how a race will roll out on a course, but often riders have a different plan. And, often we see different tactics from different categories as well, which is always really interesting.
It is, and those different tactics in different categories may well be, as you can see on your course, it dips slightly going into climb 1. You've then got an even bigger dip behind it, and it goes down in almost a bowl shape and then climbs up steeply out of it. That for me is really sort of the key point number 2. So key point number 1 is going up the first climb. Key point number 2 is actually the steep kicker out of it, and that is more decisive in past editions of the racing in the categories. And then, of course, you've still got to prove it all on the final climb. Very interesting. The top of this climb has a nasty little section which can catch people out. If you look at the very top of the climb, then you can see there's a little dip just after the actual summit. Really interesting point, isn't it?
Yeah, it is indeed. And at 10.4 kilometres, that final climb, people will lose minutes. If your legs are not good and you cannot go with the pace at the front, it can be minutes. Anyway, so we talked about lack of action on the front of category 1.
I think Rebecca was listening.
And Gilson has pushed on again. So Gilson putting in a second attack, and this time she's now 10 seconds clear. So the group behind not chasing at the moment, though. Quevedo just coming to the front, but no response from the group behind. Gilson pushing on 5 watts per kilo. She's time trialing away.
Yeah, Rebecca Gilson, I think, knows to wait until we are not on the show to give us the action. Well, look at this, more action. We've seen Gilson off the front in category 1. In category 4, this is the summit going over the top. You see these riders now going clear. This is a Vink at the moment who is clear with Barco Ossa. There are 2 riders who have got the gap going over the top. They've got 5 seconds on Salazar, 7 on Pablo. It's 11 to Bernard and 46 to Myra Madeira. So these 2 riders on the top of that climb pushing on and now accelerating on the way over the top of the summit here. There's a little bit of a rise, as you can see, top right-hand side of your screen. You can see that little green arrow pointing at where the riders are on the thin white line that is the profile on the course. And this is available. The riders see this as well. They'll know that by carrying momentum through here, if these 2 riders can work together, they have got the chance of really opening a gap on the riders behind. Leave it to one rider, it's going to be very difficult. So work as a pair now. We'll see you get bigger time gaps rather than working solo. That's on the right-hand side of your screen. That's category 4. Left-hand side, Emma, category 3. They are into the climb and they are on the way up at the moment. Not looking quite as aggressive, not so decisive.
No, it's looking like there's 7 or 8 riders in that group, Matt, in category 3. All happy at the moment to continue as a group. So climbing, but on the lower slopes of that climb through the tunnels, the gradient not particularly steep at the moment, so 1.7% at the moment under their wheels. So a very shallow gradient for our category 3 riders. They're coming up towards the 12-kilometer mark, but they are all still together. So Carmona is the rider leading that group out. As a little bit further back down the road, we see an attack in category 2, and that is Alessia Antico.
Well, look at this. Antico, a rider who we know can climb, being chased by Carla Fioroni. What a surprise. Two of our most aggressive, great riders. They put some big attacks in. They are continuing to push. Let's see how they are going on here.
Yeah, well, interestingly, these are two riders who have just moved up to this category, Matt, but we know them to be exceptionally aggressive in category 3. And what's really interesting is they've decided category 2 are too slow.
Oh, well, all they want to see how their power compares before they get to the big climb. So if you're a good climber, we know that Antico and Fioroni are very competitive in their previous category, but you've not raced in this category. You want to stretch your legs and get a good idea before you get to that final climb. Leaving it on to the final climb, you could get a really nasty surprise on that climb, and that is going to be really interesting. And I think I don't think it's nerves. I think it's anticipation. It's eager anticipation,
Well, it's
wanting to know how the race is going to play out.
Yeah, well, the Manuela Sanchez, Samara Shepherd in here at the moment, Reynard Bardeskaya, these riders who, and Engstrom, these category 2 riders who have been part and parcel of this category 2 Sunday Race Club for some time now, marking out the two new riders up into the category. So Antico and Fioroni, the two riders attacking on the front, swiftly being brought back in, but we can see riders now starting to get dropped out the back of the group.
And that is the pace. It's that increase. It's that attack and that kick and that change in pace. And I think what we're going to see, Emma, it's always good when we see new riders coming in and moving up through the categories, because they change the dynamic in that group, don't they? And where you might have had what was becoming a very not predictable, but maybe a more familiar pattern of racing starting to develop. All of a sudden, somebody throws in a joker card, somebody throws in a wild card, and you've got this whole different change in the dynamics. And then it really changes it, and people don't know how to respond. People don't know how hard they're going to go. If you let them go, would you be able to bring them back? And you put that in the mix. It really is good to see Carla Fioroni here clearly wanting to stretch her legs out and wanting to put the pressure on the rest of the riders here. And great to see the mix-up of riders. And that is one of the great things, isn't it? Because it's not a fixed boundary between category 1, 2, 3, and 4. They are decided based on the entrance in the races. So you do find people on the boundaries moving up and down quite a lot, and that is really good, because it does mean that there's regularly that change in the racing dynamic, and it keeps the racing fresh too.
Yeah, and it mixes it up for the individual rider as well. So they don't become stale. If you know week in, week out, you're always going to be in the top 3, or week in, week out, you're never going to be in the top 3. It adds motivation to know, oh my goodness, so 5 riders have moved up from category 3 to category 2 this week. Those riders in category 3 are going, this could be anybody's today. And that gives additional motivation, and people will be brave. Brave riders try different tactics and really try and mix it up.
And I think that hopefully, he says, not that I want the race over and done with, but I think hopefully that's going to give us an aggressive race and a quick race, because the real change in dynamic can do that. But it can do the reverse, can't it? Because we do see sometimes the opposite. People are a little bit concerned, and they act a little bit more circumspect in terms of their aggression, because they don't know how much they can give it, and they don't want to gamble and lose too much time. But better to gamble in a qualifier than in the finals.
Yeah, absolutely. And better to learn what the new group you are moving into is like, or the group that you are staying in is like, without those fast riders that you know will always take positions in the top 5, and try things out, because you never know, do you? Sometimes when you try something out, it sticks.
It does indeed. So the category 2, aggressive and attacking, on the right-hand side, top right-hand side of your screen, top left-hand side, that is category 1, entering into the tunnel climb. Category 4 are on the exit of the climb out from the dip after the climb. So let's put that into something that's actually understandable by human beings. So the category 4 have gone up the first climb. They've dropped out the other side of the tunnels. They've come down and they've gone into the dip, into the big well in the ground, and then coming out of the climb. It is a desert climb. It takes them up to the crossroads, and this is the steep exit up. So this is the second of those key attacking points that we were looking at. Looked at the first one on the first climb. The second one was on the exit from the dip after climb number 1, and that is the steep ramps out. And then you've got the final climb. And this is the section where Ella Vink at the moment and Barco Ossa have got a little bit of a gap. Wendy Salazar there doing that spin with the fingers that come to the front. Time to take a turn. Everybody works. If we work together, we'll get there. Whether or not Diane Grace Burnett can do that is going to be about, does she want to do that, and has she got the power to do that? They can see that they are closing down on Vink and Barco Ossa. 2 should become 4 in theory, but it is just in theory because, of course, the 2 in front, they broke clear. But this is going to give us 4 riders in the lead, and behind the riders are in single digits. In fact, they are single riders now. So that means that the advantage is definitely with our 4 leading riders.
It is indeed at the moment, I'm going to say, because they are still some way off of that final climb, you know, Matt. 25.3 kilometres is the point that we start on the Category 1 climb, and it is so long, 10.43 kilometres. So at 6.5% overall gradient, it is going to be a really big climb at the end of this race. And I think, you know, well, Pablo at the moment is, 24 seconds back?
Yeah, but we know that Madeline Pablo can climb, so maybe she can pull that back.
Yeah, but so can Ella Vink, and we've seen Vink climb time after time. So it's going to be really interesting in Category 4. In Category 3, we've got a bit of a split here. So Lopez Pelaggio, Jose Zabala, Carmona Molina, and I think that is indeed Montoya Galeno. Just broken a little bit. Ochoa's 2 seconds back. So Ochoa is the rider having to push on here to get back onto that group.
So Paul Ochoa fighting to get back into the wheels. I'm stumbling over the words quite simply because I'm staring so hard at the screen, looking at the time gap, and I'm sure Paula Ochoa is doing exactly the same, chasing on to Molina. So Ochoa with the group in front, Pelaggio now at the back of that group, and Ochoa having to work to bring this group back. She won't want to be distanced at this stage. Meanwhile, attack off the front with Gilson has continued onwards, but now Catherine Fua is chasing hard behind. So at the moment in Category 1, we've got Gilson in the lead. She is rider number 1, 49 seconds up the road from Catherine Fua. Fua, Cavedo, Morales, Biarhead, Geraldo Arias are the riders who are leading the charge behind. But look at Category 1. It's one long line. If the pace is off, that will be a big ball, a big bunch. When the pace is on, it'll be a long line. And when it is really on, it's a long line and splitting. And that is what's happening.
It is indeed. It is splitting. And the riders in that second pack now having to really watch what they're doing, because we've now got 3 groups, not 1 in this Category 1 field. Gilson down the road, Sanchez, Santiago, Fua. These riders are the riders doing the chasing at the moment, as Rebecca Gilson just time trials her way away from that Category 1 pack.
So the pack on the left-hand side of your screen, your solo leader in Gilson. On the right-hand side of the screen, Sanchez breaking away, looking to get across the gap, looking to stretch this out, take away a group, whittle down that big pack. Remember, you don't want to just tow all these climbers in to the finish. If you're a climber, you don't want to get worked over early on by some of the sprinters, and it's all a matter of reducing those odds without leaving a big group behind you. And this is what this climb's really good for. It's a brilliant climb to distance riders out, to thin down the group, and to improve your odds of being in the top 5, whilst retaining a good-sized group at the front that can work together.
Well, that's definitely what's happening in this Category 1 pack at the moment. So the whittling down is starting, and the whittling down is continuing. 1, 2, 3, 4 riders just getting distance off the back and continuing to drop riders off the back of this group. The pace has settled down a little, but it's still a strong pace up this climb. Currently 4.4, 4.6 watts per kilo coming out from this group. So this is a strong, steady climbing pace.
It is, and we're not long until we go over the top. So this is where everybody's been pushing for. As we go over the top, the riders will go into the descent, and any gap between the riders in this group will be exaggerated. It really will move across into big numbers. So any little gap will get bigger, and all of a sudden, riders will find themselves in trouble. So that's why you can see this group is regrouped together as a big ball, because nobody wants to leave any kind of gap, any kind of chance of being distanced. The speed will pick up. Already at 42, now 43, now 44, now 46, 47 kilometers an hour. So going over the 30 mile per hour, the 53 kilometer marker, and very quickly you can see these riders into the descent. They're going to pick up a lot of speed here, and if you're not in with this group, I don't think you're going to see it again.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? So the group now moving on, and the group smaller than it was when it went into the tunnels, but now with Gilson off down the road, she is well and truly clear of this group. I think the next attack we'll see from this pack is when they get into the main climb, but you know, never discount anything other than what I'm saying.
I think this is going to be very interesting to see who in this pack now takes up the chase. Are they going to chase down Gilson, or are they going to leave Gilson on her own out at the front? So we have our 4 categories, top left-hand side of your screen. Category 1 on the descent from climb number 1. Categories 2, 3, and 4 on the climb out from the descent afterwards. 2 at the base of the climb, 3 about a third of the way up that, and category 4 just going up over the top of that climb, heading out into the distance, and they're going to be on the downhill. In fact, they're just hitting that downhill now. So all of our categories really are showing that they mean business today. We're seeing impressive and aggressive leaps and jumps, people trying to take the race out. At the moment, category 1 on the descent, they have the highest speed, over 60 kilometers an hour. They're coming off the big climb. Category 4, currently over 50 kilometers an hour. They're just coming over the far side of the dip after the climb. But 2 and 3, well, they are at very similar speeds, because they are both on to the climb that takes you out and away from that big dip, that well, and that depression, and the run back in. So great to see such great racing. And I tell you something, I think we're going to see some more action now. Category 2, as they come onto this climb, you can see the gradient on the top right hand side in the red there, the 6.1%, well, deep orange at the moment. It'll go red when it goes over 7, but 6.1%. It's tough climbing up here, and it's got a very real feel when you ride it as well. And that's one of the things that's great about MyWhoosh. When you jump on board, you get that real feel. You know, I'd love to think that I can ride up a 25% climb at 30 miles an hour, but that's just gamification. You don't get that on MyWhoosh. What you're getting is you're getting very real feel. So I suffer on the climbs, I have to admit it, just like I do in real life.
I don't think it's just you. I think everybody suffers on the climbs, and it doesn't matter how fit you are, you still suffer because you just push harder. So our category 2 women on the right hand side, our category 1 women on the left hand side, around 2.5 kilometers, or just shy of 2.5 kilometers, separating these 2 packs. Now, this is not the lead in the category 1 race. That's Rebecca Gilson, and she is down the road at the moment. At last time check, it was 43 seconds down the road. So Acevedo, the rider here with Sanchez, Marin Gavaria, Tejeros, Fua is in here. So is Pardini. Biarhead is here as well. Now, Gilson, time check, 50 seconds down the road. So the time still going out to Rebecca Gilson, but fluctuating at the moment with the speed of the riders. Because, Matt, tell us about how these time gaps are generated.
So the time gaps are generated. Are you ready for this, folks? This could get quite technical. So if you are in a standard road race, and how we've all seen it on things like the UAE Tour, the Giro, the time gaps have traditionally been generated by somebody starting the clock at a fixed point. So when the leader hits a point, and that could be at the big church on the left-hand side, it could be the mosque on the right-hand side, it could be at the bridge over the motorway, over the highway, going under it now. They'll start the clock, and then when the rest of the group go through, they go, right, time gap now. And that would be 30 seconds, for example. Now, that's not how it's done on esports. Because we have so much data and we can track every single rider relatively, well, the time gaps are generated by the speed and positioning of the rider. So what you will see is that the time gaps yo-yo up and down much more. They're much more reactive to the speed of the rider, and they are instantaneous. So they are constantly updating. So if you have a rider on a descent, their speed will be higher. If you have a rider on the climb, the speed will be low. And you can see that these riders on the climb at 20 kilometers an hour, not 60 kph as we were seeing on the descent. So that is then computed in to the course, and that is what generates the time gap. So that is why when we look at those time gaps, we look at it over a range, and we also look at it on the terrain and where they are at a set point. But the time gaps are instantaneous and very accurate, but they are based on the speed of the rider. So if a rider is doing a very high speed or a very low speed, then they will be less accurate. Whereas the accurate time gaps on the road that you would see on a tour are incredibly accurate. The downside is that they are very infrequent and are generally out of date by the time you get them. And don't I know it, because I've been caught out by that on the road.
Talking about being caught, our Category 2 riders coming up onto the back of the Category 3 pack. So timing is everything, Matt, and that was beautiful commentary timing. So thank you very much indeed.
Anyone would think I do this for a living. I've got to say, it's an absolute pleasure putting words to the action and everything. And that's from local races and supporting some of our local events out and around where we are at Full Speed events. Or, of course, covering races like the MyWhoosh Championships, the Sunday Race Club, the World Championships. I'm going to be covering some of the XEE, a very different type of racing, but it could be great fun covering that. And we see individual riders, 4 riders at a time, unlike our big groups on the screen at the moment, because Category 2 and Category 3 are together, and this is when we see confusion. This is when we see the riders have to pay attention, but also we could see Category 3 riders trying to jump on board with Category 2, and it's happened at a perfect time here. They've come to the top of the slope and they're about to hit the descent, so the power differences between the riders that is evident on the climb is now offset by the fact that a rider can hide in the draft. So if you see the riders' numbers in the top left-hand side in green, they are hiding in the draft. And that draft potential is huge, 20, 30, 40, 50% saving easily if you get the positioning right. And that means that our Category 3 riders, who may be down on a climb 10% on the power of Category 2, can more than save that power on the descent. And this group should stay together. So brilliant timing for this group in Category 2, and this is really going to speed their race up.
Absolutely, and your positioning in that pack is absolutely key to the amount of draft that you get. And you don't want to be on the outside, you don't want to be on the front, you want to be in the middle or on the back, and that is absolutely important. And understanding and learning the technique and how to draft on the MyWhoosh platform is absolutely key.
And it's not just about being able to put in big watts or backing off. It's being able to be very, very subtle and smooth with your pedal revs as well. And that's where we see riders tend to benefit if they pedal a higher cadence. So if you are pushing at 50, 60 revs per minute, and you push down or you need to ease off, it's much harder to get those fluctuations just right. And that's why when you watch a group of professional riders like the men's and women's UAE teams or any of the professional pelotons, they look so smooth. They are just spinning away. They can change pace very quickly, and it's very reactive. That bigger gear, whilst it might be very efficient if you're on your own, it's much harder to change the fluctuation and the speed. And being able to do that is really critical to sitting in the draft. Now, that's true whether you are a Category 2, 3 rider coming together, or if you're in Category 1 and you've got some very aggressive, very fast riders who can accelerate off the front of the bunch very quickly and change their pace quickly. So having that cadence is really key, and that is critical.
Yeah, well, we're not seeing much change here in this Category 1 race. Rebecca Gilson now just mopping up some of the riders in the Category 2 race field. In fact, she's got company there from Kimberly Miller. So Gilson still clear, and I'm looking at this. This is just shy of half a kilometre up the road as Gilson kicks because the gradient has gone up. The pack chasing behind sat very, very steady, so 2.8 watts per kilo coming from Fua. So the group behind really now just riding with each other and no one chasing Gilson, who is down the road.
Well, I think it's one of those things, isn't it? If you don't take Gilson back very quickly, and I mean within the first few seconds of her putting an attack, you know you've got a long job ahead, and you then have to pace your effort to get to the end of the race and to bring back Gilson. You can't just try and bring her back, because basically efforts tend to come in one of two ways. You're either going to bring her back in the first few seconds because you're going to put in a massive dig and get there, or you're not going to do that, and then you're going to be faced with a long pull that is not possible on your own. You're going to want to have groups pulling back and pulling that time gap, and that's a big time gap. But as you said at the start of the show, Emma, when we were looking at the climbs, that top of that climb is worth minutes. You know, literally, the climb is worth minutes. It's a long climb. It's a big climb. There's a lot of elevation. It's just shy. It's just shy of 700 meters of elevation on that final climb. That is absolutely huge.
Yeah, it is indeed. And the first riders who are going to get to that climb is going to be our Category 4 group. They are leaders on the road at the moment, coming up for 24.5 kilometres of this race. They are at just shy of 1 kilometre from the base of that Category 1 climb where the checkered flag awaits them at the top. So Vink, Bernat, Salazar and indeed Barco Ossa are the 4 riders clear at the front of Category 4. They are also our leaders on the road at the moment.
Really good to see. I think the riders at the moment looking at each other a little bit and they're wondering how hard to go, how much effort to put in, who's got any pace. Category 4 racing. I'm absolutely loving the front of this race here in Category 4. Vince Salazar, Bernard, along with Barco Ossa here. They're 4 very good riders who they've raced against each other regularly, and they know each other inside out. You know, you would know just how this racing feels, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be any easy. It's going to be any easier. It's almost harder, isn't it?
They've backed off the pace a little from the initial gaps because they are doing a little bit of recovery, I think, before they hit that climb, because they know they are not going to be a group of 4 at the top. And as much recovery, talking about recovery, Bernard has just backed straight off there and has now got a little dig.
I don't want to be on the front. Don't leave me on the front. I don't want to do all the work.
But they are indeed, and we're seeing some real recovery on those heart rates at the moment, and they need it.
Yeah, the climb is coming. And this is one of those things that if you're in this group and you're thinking, oh, do you know what I really could do with a break before I hit the climb? You ease off a little bit and you hope everybody else eases off until some plonker decides to go off down the road in front. That's the politest version I can ever think.
I just heard that. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, plonk is quite good. Some donkey then goes off down the road in front of you and puts an attack in just when you think, oh, everybody's going to have a nice easy break. We're just going to recover before, then we'll sort it out when we hit the climb. Somebody goes for it on the front. I have to say, sometimes that was me.
Well, you can see the climb going up ahead of them as Vink, Barco, Ossa, Bernat and Salazar are the 4 riders today to hit this Category 1 climb first at the end of this 35-kilometre course. So 692 meters of climbing now await these Category 4 women.
And now the gloves are off, so nobody now is going to be afraid to push on if they want to prove it. Now is the time. The pause is gone. That little bit of a rest in between rounds of this fight that is the Sunday Race Club is over. No more tailing down, no more taking on board fuel, because you're going to be flat out now to the top. You've got to get this right, and this is where judging your pace is key. Look at the gradient increase as we come on to the mountain here. You can see the gradient going up. It is kicking, and the road rises in front of our riders. This is spectacular scenery here in Arabia on MyWhoosh. And now we are into our final 10 kilometers, 9.3K to the summit for these riders. Let's see who's going to come out on top. All 4 riders should be in line for top 5 prizes for one of those, as long as their results are verified when we get the results completely analysed at the end of the racing. Now, Category 4 onto the climb. Category 1, they've still got a fair way to go here, Emma.
They have indeed. So 5 kilometres behind those leaders on the road at the moment is this Category 1 chase pack. Gilson is down the road, so and I think now over a minute stands between Gilson and this group of riders. So yeah, indeed. So Gilson, well and truly, 1 minute 4. I'm just taking a little double check there. 1 minute 40 seconds currently clear Gilson is of this group, and Gilson has time trialled her way away from the group. Her heart rate has been consistently steady at around 183, 184 the whole time, whereas the chase group behind have decided to actually ease off and take an easier run into the bottom of that final climb today and then sort it all out on the mountainside.
Well, that's an interesting tactic, and it is a risky tactic, isn't it, Emma? Leaving it to the final climb, but I think realistically, faced with the pace of Gilson, not much more that you would want to do now. Let's take a look at the differences in pace. They're just coming in through the segment end here, so remember each of our segments timed individually. The results from this segment should be indicative of what's happening now. If Gilson's got the fastest time, I think she probably will have. She's stretching that lead out. If she doesn't have the fastest time through there, then she hasn't got that pace. So you can see the riders currently at 21.68. So that is just after segment number 5, and you can see Gilson with the fastest time through that segment. And a quick reminder, this segment is 3.5k long. The difference, though, 12.839 seconds, and really interesting, that is not to a category 1 rider but to a category 2 rider. What's the difference, Emma? Have you got it in front of you there?
Yeah, 44 seconds. 44 seconds back to the category 1 pack.
So, 44 seconds. So that is essentially, by my reckoning, about 12 seconds or so per K quicker.
However, you know, the category 1 pack, I said, we're moving really steady. 2.4 watts per kilo, 2.2 watts per kilo.
Maybe
I know
not
it's
anymore.
now changing, but Gilson went through at 4.1 watts per kilo. So Gilson went through time trialing. The pack went through riding. The pack are now not riding. The pack are now attacking. So Jose Valdez, Quevedo, Biarhead, Moreno are the riders now pushing on. We've got 2 riders, Jose Velez and Quevedo now clear. We've got riders chasing hard behind, and that group strung out across the road now. So it's all action now on category 1.
And I'll tell you something, they haven't got long to get this group broken down before they hit the climb. I mean, the climb starts at 25.5k near enough. That means that these riders have got basically 3k to sort it out and to get rid of anybody they want to get rid of, or give themselves some margin, some sliding room by going into the climb early. You know, it's not all that long ago, you know, in my memory, I mean, Eros Poly is the classic example. Eros Poly disappeared off down the road, got a gap, ended up keeping it over the top of the mountain and taking a stage winning the Tour. So it can be done even if you're not a natural climber. But this is where the natural climbers should come to the fore. We're on the climb, and look at the difference here. Category 2 have had Category 3 with them, saving energy by sitting in the draft. Now that we hit the slopes, pretty much the entire front of that group is the Category 2 riders. Category 3 riders in the blue have been dropped or distanced towards the back, and this is because this is about pure climbing ability now from here pretty much to the summit.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at Molina there, the Category 3 rider, continually trying to push to stay with the back of this group. You know, the Category 3 riders need to be really careful not to work too hard on these lower slopes and then lose seconds and minutes on the top slopes as they try and fight to stay with these Category 2 riders. So the Category 2 and Category 3 leaders in one large group came into the bottom of this climb. We are now on the foothill slopes. I say foothill slopes, but it's 10.7% at the moment under their wheels. And our Category 2 riders now riding away from the Category 3 riders. So Reynard is here, Shepherd is here, Antico is here, Agudelo, Quintero, Sanchez, they are all in here pushing on, and it's Alessia Antico who is pushing on the hardest at the front of this group. She's continuing to ride strongly. Quintero in 2, Agudelo in 3. These riders all now chasing, and this Category 2 pack starting to get split up.
Yeah, really interesting here. Look at Antico go. Look at the pedal revs there. 105 pedal revs. The cadence over the top there. Now going through the gears, just changing as she goes onto this climb. Carried that momentum really well over the top, and has not been snowballed by the rest of the group diving over the top. So Antico on familiar territory to see her on the attack, on the climb. Long way to go. And I think the big difference for me, she's getting closed down very fast here compared to previously.
Yeah, well, that was in category 3. This is category 2, and it's a different quality of field as Antico gets pulled in by the chasing group. Bardaskaya, Quintero, Higuita, Fioroni is in here as well. These riders continuing to push on and continuing to ride. It's still a large group, you know, and it's interesting here. The gradient 11.5%. This is seriously steep, and we've said that this is quite a stepped climb, and there are some very steep sections, even though the average gradient is 6.5%. And it is indeed Reynard this time who is pushing on at the front. Antico is in here with Manuela Sanchez. Samara Shepherd is in here as well. So these riders now continuing on this climb, but there is still a long way to go.
There is indeed a long way to go, and I think it's really good when you see these riders move up into categories and able to make that stretch, because they will have improved. And it's how you get quicker. I've always said you don't get quicker. It's not my phrase. I borrowed it off somebody else. Don't worry. You don't get quicker riding with people who are slower than you. So if you want to improve, you need to take that step up into a category and move up through those categories. And to do that, you've got to improve. Coaching and training plans are key to that. Don't forget, of course, you can go onto the MyWhoosh platform. There are lots of great training programs, whether you want to improve your sprint, your outright power, your climbing ability, whatever you need to improve or what you want to target. Make sure you go on there. Key to that is making sure you know your numbers and your data, and of course you can check that out and get some baseline numbers on the platform. So do check it out. Make sure you go on to mywhoosh.com and make sure you go on, download the program, get familiar with what you can do, where you go. Don't forget, of course, lots of videos on the YouTube channel as well, so please do give it a subscribe and make sure you have a watch with some great updates on there, as well as some fantastic tutorials from Jeff. And great to see Jeff really busy putting those together. Some great action from the racing, some of the events that MyWhoosh are out that we were mentioning earlier, and of course some great tutorials, whether that is how to personalize your avatar or whether you want to be able to use the channel. Now, one of the interesting things that we have that's going to be really instrumental when we come to the teams, that the riders can talk to each other. So built into the platform, you don't need a separate channel anymore. Built into the platform is a microphone on and off. That microphone on and off is really key. One of the key features, if you are on a team, it will automatically select you a team channel and you'll be in the team channel. You talk to your teammates. So if you are registering and you register as a team and you put your team name down and register as a team, you can use the channel and nobody else can hear you. Whereas if you are not, you are in with everybody else on that channel.
Yeah.
And it's a mixed channel across the whole race. You can switch it on and off and you can mute it, but you can't use it to communicate, and that is key, particularly at a section like this when you're coming into the climb.
Well, it does mean all our individual riders can talk to each other, which I think is a really interesting development, because normally you wouldn't have a Discord channel, for example, running across all the individual riders, where you probably would across your teammates. So it is going to be really interesting, I think, when we come to the final and we see those conversations able to take place across the individual riders and not just the teams. Now, back to the racing in front of us, and all of our race fields now on this final category 1 climb, as we see Rebecca Gilson moving forward. She's still holding that pace. She's still holding that same time trial pace. Now, behind, the pack have all come back together. Last time we were with this category 1 pack, they were starting to stretch across the road and we were starting to see attacks, but we've seen the entire pack come into the base of the climb together.
Yeah, and really good work being done by the riders, keeping it together, I think, on the way in, and trying to make sure that they husband their resources, make sure they look after their effort. But now it is time to put it on the line. One rider who's done that, I mean, Rebecca Gilson, we talked about her earlier on in the show, Emma, as coming in as being a rider who maybe wasn't on form, that early speculative attack. Well, I think any speculation is over. Rebecca Gilson is on form, and she is riding strong.
Yeah, she is indeed riding strongly. She attacked early in the race today. She was brought back in. Her second attack stuck, and she has slowly just time trialed her. I say slowly. She hasn't slowly time trialed her way, but she has time trialed her way away from the main group. She has held her pace pretty constant. Her heart rate sat at about 183, 184. Now that she's on the climb, it's slowly starting to tick up, as she's currently at 187 beats per minute, 188. It continues to move, but she's still got some way to go. The chase group behind, we've had attacks come from this chase group on a couple of occasions, but this chase group has ended up being whittled down a little bit, but it's still a very large group.
I think one of the things that is really helping Gilson here is that these riders are looking at each other and they know that when they make a move on this mountain, they have to make a move that will stick. They're probably only going to get one, maybe two at the most chances to try and go clear. Such is the quality of the rest of the riders around them. You can't afford to waste that chance, that opportunity. So you've got to really go for this. But at some point, they're going to have to come off the defensive and go on the offensive. Let's see how that is going to roll as they go up and through. So we will see where our riders are and how they are moving. Now, we are just going to keep our eye on our category 4 riders. That is going to be Maria Bacco Ossa, who is on the climb. She's at 28.42. She is our race leader on the road at the moment. So it looks like Bacco Ossa leading on the road at the moment. You can see Berna is with us. Salazar has made the junction. Where is Ella Vink? So the category 4 riders are coming in. Well, how far down is she, though? She's in 4th place. I'm just looking to see if I can see the time gaps between, but I can't see her on our screens. And it may well be the Vink. There we go.
She's over a minute back now.
That is exploded.
Well, we said, didn't we? We did say that riders can indeed lose minutes on this climb, and that is happening to Ella Vink at the moment. So Vink now gapped from that leading group of 4 in that category 4 race. It's now a leading group of 3.
And it's not all over by any stretch of the imagination, is it? Because realistically, if Vink can lose a minute on this climb, well, so could anybody else. Or so could all of the leaders, because we still have a long way to go. We still have what is going to be 6.4 kilometers left for the leaders in category 4. They are the leaders on the road. They're the furthest up the road. A little bit further behind, you can see the lead in category 2. Currently up into 5th place, it is Agudelo Reyes, who has got the gap at the moment in category 2 on Elodie Reynard. Reynard not far behind, only 3 seconds down. And then it's going to be Barrio Sona, then it's going to be Sanchez, then Barco, and then Antico as they come up on to this climb. And they are currently not that far behind. I think they're about 18 seconds down on the riders in front. So they are closing in. And the first of the riders going to see is going to be Berna, I think, as they come up and through. So really interesting watching these riders making their way in towards the finish. And at the moment, it's about setting a good pace on here. And really interesting here that Agudelo Reyes, 57 revs per minute. That is less than 1 a second. That is doing some serious training, because that is going to require some massive strength to do that. And the problem with that is that eventually your legs can give out. So let's keep an eye. Hopefully that's not going to happen, because she's climbing really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say absolutely, but I said Absudello.
Absudello. It's a new phrase.
It's a new phrase.
This is climbing Absudello-ly. There you go.
It is indeed, and she is indeed. So she's moving really strongly up this climb at the moment. So Agudelo Reyes moving strongly in category 2. It is Elodie Reynard who is doing the chasing. She's just 4 seconds back now. Reynard, a strong rider. So it's going to be interesting to see how Reynard does. When we were in Colombia in qualifier number 1, Reynard took the win in category 2, so we know she climbs well.
Yeah, for a quick reminder, that course basically had one dirty great mountain that we climbed with 2 segments on the same climb, on the same mountain, basically part 1 and part 2. And I'll tell you something, Elodie Reynard now, look at this. This for me is a very different climbing style. 86 revs per minute here, spinning those legs round. So she's using her fitness, not her strength, to climb. And that is generally more sustainable on a longer climb. But the response that comes behind, a quick kick, a push to get on to the wheels. Can Reynard break it? Now, Elodie Reynard has been riding this for a long, long time, and really has progressed. It's great to see the improvement in these races. You were saying that earlier on, Emma, and we are seeing that again. And Elodie Reynard here now taking the lead. She's looking to use her climbing fitness to accelerate on. So the French woman at the moment at the front of the Category 2 race, but it's not all over by any stretch of the imagination. Plenty of Colombian riders immediately behind her. That's in Category 2. Category 1 on the left-hand side of the screen, and gonna see the riders on this climb. So just coming around this turn, they've still got that gap to Gilson in front. Really interesting to see the mix of names in here. It includes riders like Veronica Pardini in here, Emma, a rider who really has done a good ride for moving up into Category 1.
Yeah, and this group's still together, but again, at a very constant pace at the moment, this group. So none of the riders in this group shouldn't be able to hold this pace. So this pace is steady in this group. Now, what was interesting was through the last time check, through that last segment we saw, actually the group, it was a group of 19 chase riders to Gilson in this Category 1 race, and in fact they went through the segment 2 seconds quicker than Gilson. So while Gilson continues to hold her lead, the group are now holding her at that time.
Yeah, I think that is the Category 1 riders starting to race rather than ride, and it is very different, isn't it? And it can be the difference between something being comfortable and being impossible.
Well, you know, it's not impossible at the moment because we've got Gilson on the right-hand side of the screen. She's 500 metres up the road. And now 500 metres to close in, well, in a race on a climb like this is difficult, but it really does depend on whether Gilson can maintain this pace. Now, we saw her time trialling away early on, and I think for me this is the key indicator. So we saw her time trial away earlier on in this race, and her heart rate sat at 183, 184. She's gone onto this climb, and her heart rate has steadily risen. So it's gone from 183, 184 to 185, 188. It's now currently at 199, not 191. Now, I know from previous races that we have seen Gilson go absolutely pop on a massive attack at 207. So I know she's got range, and I know that probably she's got, well, the question is, does she have enough range? Because she's got a 35-kilometre race, and that's where the checkered flag is, at 35k. So she's got just around 6.1 kilometres to go.
Well, let's see. Let's see if Gilson pushes in there. She'll know her limits, though, won't she?
She'll be riding this very, very smart.
Yeah, that's one of the great advantages. If you are able to handle the multiple data inputs, if you're able to take on board all this information, then you can use it to your advantage. But the other thing it indicates, when you look at how hard Gilson's going, the riders behind, they're still a group. They're not individual riders. They've not split yet. And for me, that is really indicative of a group of riders who are playing this out to race towards the end. Meanwhile, up at the front of the race, you can see that it's Elodie Reynard in here. So Reynard at the moment is your race leader. The gap that she has isn't now to the rider who was behind, and that was to Agudelo Reyes, but this is now to a group of riders, and they are sat at between 3 and about 5 seconds, depending on the way that we get the flickering in the time gaps, as we talked about earlier. We've got Samara Shepherd, Maria Higuita, Adriana Barker, looks like Barry Cerner in there, Sanchez in that group. This is a class group.
It is indeed, and it's great to see Shepherd actually come to the fore, and watching her progress through this climb, it's been interesting. She's one of our newer riders. She joined just before the MyWhoosh Championship, so she's been with us just over a month now on the Sunday Race Club, and it's great to see her starting to really come to the fore in this Category 2 race.
Yeah, I really have loved to see the improvement, and one of the great things about being on the mic for MyWhoosh for such a long time, you see this improvement in our riders, people like Elodie Reynard, you see who's been here for a long time, and people like Samara Shepherd who's been here a relatively short length of time. But don't forget, you can join them. So make sure that you download the app, get riding on that, and come and race. Don't be put off by the fact it's scary, it's big. Do you know what? You can do it in the. You can have your favourite cuddly toy on your handlebars for company if you want.
Well, I'd rather have my favourite tunes in my ears as I was climbing this hill,
Yeah.
because Reynard is doing a good job. But Manuela Sanchez is the rider who has indeed brought her back. Berio Cerna is in here as well. So Samara Shepherd. Barco is not far off, neither is Agudelo, but that is starting to be a bigger gap back. And Tico now 26 seconds down the mountain.
Indeed, and I think maybe paying for that earlier effort, but we know that she can climb and she'll sit at a pace. I think that she's comfortable. She's an experienced rider on the platform, and great to see this progression. And that is the whole point, isn't it? You go with the faster riders, you try and race with them. If you just race it like you're racing your lower category, the odds are that if you go slow, you're not going to be up there. Now, action in category 1. Daniela Marin has gone on the attack here. Quevedo has responded, as has Maria Marin. They are on to this turn. You can see there's a big split in the group as they come up, and they are using catching riders, the caught riders, as a way to distract everybody else. So as you go through the group, you will get some drafts. Even at the lower speeds, it does take some effect, albeit limited. But the confusion factor is even better, because as you go in, you're seeing these riders around, people are getting their screens. And remember, our riders can only see the same screen that you can see on the right-hand side. So you are going to see 8 other riders round you at most. That means you can't see when you've got a big group coming all together. You don't know whether somebody on the front's gone really hard. You have to look at the dots on the top right-hand side. You have to look at your camera angle. You have to do all that whilst you're climbing a mountain. That is why using that confusion is so effective at going clear and breaking up the riders. So that is on the left-hand side of your screen. Category 1 chasing group. What is left of the peloton, which is not really a peloton, it's more of a pack or a group, on its way up, catching other riders. But so is Rebecca Gilson. Gilson at the moment trying to close down on the race lead. She's approaching the 30k marker, so 5k to go very shortly, and at the moment working very well. Steady heart rate there now.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think the pack are bringing Gilson back, but they are bringing her back very slowly. So previous time check, or previous distance check, was around 500 meters. It's now around 400 meters, but this group is getting smaller and smaller. It was a group of 19 riders in this category 1 chasing pack going into the bottom of the climb. I'm thinking at the moment, or it's looking like at the moment, around 14 riders now, as riders getting dropped off the back.
Another dig on the front as well. Look at this, a great camera shot here as Jose Valadez goes clear. That is a really interesting move. She put a kick in, and look who's answered again. Karut Quevedo is answering every attack. Quevedo is with the black helmet and the white gloves on. She answered Marin there, who has the yellow aero helmet and the yellow gloves and shoes. Really interesting. Makes it easier for the riders to pick themselves out, but it also makes it easier for us as well. But Quevedo, every response, every time there's a move, she's going for it.
Well, Quevedo is on form at the moment. She won in Australia last week. She was 2nd in Colombia in Qualifier 1, and she was 3rd in the final in April. So she is absolutely one of the riders here on form at the moment.
And a rider who we know has got big kick, big power, big sprint, but the very top of this summit is a tricky one. It's not just about having the power to climb this mountain, it's about getting the finish correct, and that is going to be key if you come in a group. I personally think it is incredibly risky on this mountain top to take in anybody else, never mind a group of 5 or 6 or 10, but even one other rider into the finish, because of the draft effect and the speed of the finish and the profile of the finish. Going to be really key, I think, to come in solo to break clear. Front of the race, right hand side of the screen here, and at category 2, they have not broken this apart yet, and everybody has been able to answer the attacks and the moves so far.
Absolutely. Matt, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit more about that finish and what you mean by its technical nature?
So, and I'm going to caveat this with, if my memory is correct, which it should be, because I've done enough of these that I think I've got all these dialed in my head. Basically, when we come up to the top of the climb, we get to the top of the climb, but then we don't actually reach the finish. The finish is further down the road, about 500 meters or so. And what happens is that you go over the top of the climb, you dip and you gain a lot of speed, 50 kph or so, on that descent, which you can then carry through. And you can actually just see it, top right-hand side of that course profile. You can see the actual summit is actually higher and before the finishing line. But you've then got that little dip and that little rise. I'm trying to zoom on my screen to show you this, and I can't do it. But it basically, you've got a steep kick, a dip, and then another riser. And the momentum that you carry off the final summit into towards the actual race finish is key. We see this time and time again, riders lose out because they're in a group, or they're in a group of 2, never mind 5, and they lose out. So getting momentum, pacing it, being in the right position, if you come in here and get this wrong, you lose the race. It is that simple.
Even a lone rider being chased, I could see getting into trouble there. You think you've won the race, you back off and someone comes in faster.
And you back off as you go over the summit top, not even the finishing line, but by the time you've reacted in the dip, it's too late because you haven't put the power in. So powering over the top and powering on that descent wants to be your finishing sprint. It doesn't want to be coming on the finish line. It needs to come there because that will give you so much speed through that finish line. But you've got to get there in contention. Always my problem.
These Category 2 riders are powering on at the moment, and they're powering on up this climb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 riders still in this leading group at 32.1 kilometers into this 35-kilometer race. So it is still a strong, strong group of climbers in the lead in this Category 2 race. And these riders now are the leaders on the road.
They've been running for just under 1 hour and 10 minutes. They're at 1 hour and 9, just coming up about now. There you go, 1 hour and 9. So that is how long they've been running. You can see that that is 5 minutes more than Gilson, who of course had to make up those 5 minutes. She's working her way through the race field at the moment. She is sitting in, I think that's 20th position, which means that she is currently chasing the leaders, but at the moment there is over 1 kilometer separating the riders and plenty of altitude gain as well. You can see that at the moment that Gilson is on 670 meters of climbing, whereas the riders at the front of the race, they're on 740 meters.
Well, and what's interesting, Matt, I think, is the fact that this has got to be motivating Gilson, but the ability to work her way through the other race fields rather than just see an empty road in front of her has got to continue to motivate her and continue to motivate her to catch, and because she's got someone to catch, and that has got to help her lone breakaway.
You just know that that is going to be in there, and the rest of these riders, I think, are literally racing for second place. They're relying on the fact that Gilson will either basically blow into smithereens, which I don't think is going to happen. She's just too experienced rider, or that there becomes a technical issue with the bike. It happens, you know, people break parts on their smart bike, on the turbo, they get stuck in top gear, their buttons break, still handle, you know, people fall off them with the sheer effort that they're putting in. So anything can happen. It's just like you would find on the road, on the train, on the mountain bike, but it is generally more controllable. So I think they're focused now on what they're going to do against each other. The gradient's gone up 15% on this little bit of a rise here. This is why you can suddenly see big injection of pace coming into this tight right-hand turn. And you can see at the moment that Valdez has gone right from the back of that group to the front of the group. She used the kick and the pace, but when she backed off, now you're seeing another push on. Quevedo on the front with the black helmet being marked out very quickly by Catherine Marin, Daniela Marin in the mix. You've got Morales, you've got Moreno in there. They are really working hard, and they are coming up on Angie Parra, one of our top-class Category 2 riders.
Yeah, absolutely, but still 14 riders in this chasing group in this Category 1 race, Matt. So they have not broken each other, just 5 riders dropping off of that group, and they continue to roll together up this climb. So it is really, really interesting now. They've got around, what, 3.6 kilometers to go?
Yep. 3.6. I needed you to say anything then because you were absolutely spot on.
Well, I was just looking at it thinking 14 riders, 3.6 kilometres. You know, at some point in time we are going to see an attack, or is this literally just a war of attrition?
It's serious, pretty much. I wouldn't want to play poker against any of these riders at the moment because they are all holding their cards tight to their chest to the last possible moment here. You know, relatively, we've got, what is 10% of the race route, 3.5k to go now. So it's 10% of the racing left. What's happening? They're still sat there. They're not. Nobody's. But that could be because they just don't think that they have got the power or the pace on the way through. So let's see what they're going to do. Now, here we go. The riders in category 2. They're going to be the first of our riders to come in and through the end of segment 7. So this is our final timing segment. This finishes 2K for the finish of the actual race, and they will set the mark time that the rest of the riders need to beat. They are riding together again as a group. That initial attack that was done by Nala Agudelo Reyes, looks like that has not paid off. They are back together again, and Reynard's response was brought back. Everybody has come back together, but Reynard now pushes. They come round this left-hand turn. She's keeping that momentum going, but you can see that Barcos has responded here. Sanchez has, Shepherd. Higuita is a little bit further down. Really interesting moves in that category.
Some race in that category 2 race. So 7 riders coming into the final 2 kilometers together. And this pack in the category 1 race looking like they've just shed another rider, but that only takes it down to 13. So Gilson up the road, 13 riders chasing. How many positions, Matt, in the prize money each category?
5.
Looks like we've got a big race on in category 2 and in category 1 for the prize pot.
And this is a finish that we used on the MyWhoosh Championship. It's a finish that we've used repeatedly in the Sunday race. It's one of the riders' favourites. It's one of our favourites because we have these fluctuations in gradient. It's a long flat section they've just come through where you can pick up speed and you see the damage that's being done as they then go on to this steep slope. So anybody who is struggling, that changing gradient can do a lot of damage, and that's what it's done to that chasing group. Now we're seeing the attacks go, and the riders will know that when they get to that point at 32K, that is a key point in the race. So the category 1 leaders currently at just, well, the chasing pack just over 32 and a quarter K done, heading for 32.5K complete. The riders at the front of the very front of the race itself, they are at 33.6K. Sandwiched in between, we have our leaders in multiple categories, including, of course, the leader in category 1, which is Rebecca Gilson. Gilson, who soloed clear from that chasing pack of category 1 riders. So not long till we hit that final 1 kilometer for the riders in category 2. Our leaders on the road. Reynard just being pulled back once again. You can see Barcos going up and over. So category 1, the action continues to unfold. That group is being brought down in numbers. We are losing 1s and 2s off the back. And that looks like that continues on to this climb. Remember, this is brutal, and the last kilometer contains that very technical finish as well. So the riders have to get this right.
Yeah, so it's really interesting now to see, the category 2 riders coming into the final kilometre. There are still indeed 7 riders in this group. Berrios Serna currently leading them out from Agudelo, from Shepherd, Sanchez, Barco, Higuita and Reynard, all still in contention as they continue to push those numbers right up in the red at the moment. And you can see from the profile in front of them for this last kilometre, it is not straightforward. It is rolling and bumpy and steep and downhill, and it is just continually changing now as Agudelo Reyes pushes on. The first to attack here, Manuela Sanchez is the rider to respond. We know Manuela Sanchez is a class rider in this category 2 race field.
She is, and Sanchez knows she can't afford to let anybody go at this stage. You can see the profile coming up in front of the riders. It's going to ramp up towards the radio mast, but then we drop, climb, and into the plateau. You can see that dip and kick, and this is critical. The race is on. You've got to push now, and at the moment it's between 2 riders. The rest of this category 2 race field have been distanced for 5 seconds, but they can pull more than 5 seconds back on the dip, but they've got to act, and they've got to act now as we come on to the steep kicker to the actual summit. Remember the finish line just beyond.
Yeah, so Sanchez and Agudelo Arias, and it's Berio Serna, Barco, Reynard, Higuita, Shepherd now 11 seconds back. So Barco, the closest rider, but these two riders now pushing on and pushing clear, and it will be till they go round this corner that they will see that yellow banner, which is the finish line today.
And it's absolutely critical. Getting this turn right is key. Let's see how these riders go. I think it's going to be Agudelo Arias who's going to get this.
There, Agudelo Arias is taking us into the finish line. Manuela Sanchez is in two, but Agudelo Arias is pushing hard, and she is going to be your winner today at the top of this Category 1 climb in this Category 2 race.
And you can see the sprint is on behind. They're trying to make ground. Who's going to get third? Who's going to get fourth? Who's going to get fifth? Big kick coming up here. It's going to be Berio Serna who's going to take that, I think, as to go in and through. What riding by these riders in Category 2 to stay clear of Category 1 and to fight it out for the finish.
Well, yeah, indeed, and that indeed is Category 2 through at the moment. But Agudelo Arias taking first place from Manuela Sanchez, from Berio Serna, Barco and Higuita. So the top 5 in Category 2 are across the line. I think the next race we are going to see come across the line is going to be Category 1. So this is the chase group in Category 1. They've got 1.3 kilometres to go. Rebecca Gilson is down the road. But taking a look at this, it's Pardini in here, Carana is in here, Marin, Daniela and Catherine Marin Moreno is in here. Now, have they caught Gilson? They have indeed, Matt. So I'm taking a look down the field here, and I can see Gilson is now in this pack. So this group have indeed caught Rebecca Gilson.
Well, that was off our screens, and has Gilson blown her socks off here? We're going to have to see whether she's got anything left for the kick in towards the line. But this surely is going to suit somebody with masses of power like Avedo. She's got to be in the mix. She can't be dropped too far down this group. This is a big pack who are racing up now. Catherine Marion puts the dig. She's now had to ease back off again. They want to get this right. If they've been watching the feed, they will know that the course profile doesn't quite match at the finish line. The finish line actually on the ascent in to the actual summit line here. So slightly different. So you're going to have to fight. It's uphill all the way to the finish. There is no dip to catch your breath back, to get that momentum right. The finish line dropping down the hillside slightly here, and that means that this is going to be about having enough power for an uphill sprint into that finishing line. So Moreno tucked in at the moment, looking good. Pardini is still in here. Is this going to be a win on her debut? Can she put down the numbers when these riders are fighting it out for the win? She's up against some of the fastest riders in the world, and you can just see they are all the way in and across the line. And Gilson, at the moment, she's not in the mix at the front.
No, she's not indeed, and there's coming up for 400 metres to go in this Category 1 women's race. It's a large pack of riders coming in, and I'm looking at a count of there maybe 11 riders in this group. So this is going to be a mountain top sprint in this Category 1 climb, unless someone can break away, and it's Jose Valdez who is trying. Catherine Marin in 2, Veronica Pardini in 3, Daniela Marin in 4. These riders all pushing on here. It is neck and neck at the front of this race. Neck and neck. Jose Valdez goes, Pardini in 1, Moreno in 2, 13 watts per kilo coming out of Pardini and Valdez, Verga, Marin here, all pushing on, but it's Veronica Pardini who's carrying at the front of this race. Is it going to be Veronica Pardini? It is. It's Veronica Pardini who takes the win in the Category 1 race today.
Well, what a ride by Pardini coming in and through. She took that. That must have been some smart riding as she came in over the finish. She got that timing absolutely spot on. She wasn't the first to attack. She took her time in kicking there and waited until the key moment. Remember, she's a very experienced rider here on MyWhoosh. She's ridden this climb lots of times, and that has paid. So you can see all of our riders are lined in and through. You can see our top 9. Make sure you go on to mywhoosh.com for the results. The full results are on your screens at the moment, and they are live at the moment. They will be unofficial, and then they'll be verified.
Okay, so if you have enjoyed watching the women's race today, come and join us for the men's race. It will start shortly on the YouTube channel and on Twitch TV. Matt Payne has been with me in the studio today. My name is Emma Martin. Stay safe, enjoy your riding. We'll see you soon.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.